All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are days away from the UFC coming back to Sydney for UFC 312, and I'm honored to be joined by a very special guest and friend, one and only Luke Thomas. Welcome to Submission Radio. Dude, first things first, I just want to say rest in peace, Barbas, man. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
Yeah, well, I will say that people have been very, very kind. Thank you for that, by the way, and I've received so many emails, so many DMs, and it sucked, dude. You know, my third pet in 4 years, and none of their deaths were easy. His was not easy, and he nearly died on Halloween. He had heart failure. They pulled him out of it, and but 3 months later, he went back into it, and it's such a difficult process that we couldn't put it through him again, and the vet recommended to call it, so we did. Terrible, but I really appreciate that. So many people have said so many nice things, so I'm very grateful.
Yeah, man. Rest in peace, Barbas. And, you know, a shout out to the family, man. I know it can't be easy. All right, let's get this started by starting it off the way we usually do, and that is rating this card out of 10. I know you mentioned that there's a couple of bangers here on the card, UFC 312 in Sydney. Give me a rating out of 10 for this one, man. How you feeling on it? What would you give it?
All right, so you got Drickus and Sean Strickland in the main event. That's good.
Mm-hmm. Good fight.
Yeah, great fight. Jean Weili and Tatiana Suarez for the title. All right, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Falls off a motherfucking cliff after that. I mean, you know, Jake Matthews versus Francisco Prado was not bad, but I wouldn't call that. And that one has actually a high capacity for action, and that could be a fun fight, but it's not a super meaningful fight, right? Rodolfo Bellato and Jimmy Crute, same kind of thing. Although Bellato might be able to do something interesting in the light heavyweight division, so there's that. But like, you know, Taliesin Teixeira and Justin Tafa, I don't necessarily think. Again, it's not. Listen. I'm looking at these fights. These are not bad fights. It's really not my point. These are not bad fights. These are good fights. They're just unspectacular, and they're not necessarily hugely relevant either. They're relevant in the sense that you've got, you know, you've got a bunch of, oceanic fighters on them, but they're not, you know, Tom Nolan out of your neck of the woods for taking on Borshev, Slava Claus. Like, that's a fun fight, but I don't know how relevant it is or interesting or what the upside is. You got the return of I don't know if it's pronounced Tong or Kong Wang. That's fun. Cody Steele, by the way. Do you know a lot about Cody Steele?
I know some stuff about Cody.
Yeah, Cody Steele, like, as a big time prospect coming out of jiu-jitsu who seems like he can actually throw hands. Mm-hmm. That could be kind of interesting. Then you got Topuria. So I'll give this one. I'll give it a 7. I'll give it a 7.
A 7. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's
because
not bad.
Because you have 2 title fights. I'll give it a 7.
Yes. And I think, you know, Alex Okanovsky, he's always a shoo-in for these cards. He's waiting on Topuria. Robert Whittaker had that unfortunate, you know, the tooth accident. So I think he's coming back. Dan Hooker, he's expecting his second child. Congratulations to him and his partner on that. And that's going to be around the same time. So I think timing-wise, it didn't quite work out. We did get a bunch of fan questions on this. I'm just going to quickly just go on a couple of them. We've got one that says, like, ask Luke to recall the worst pay-per-view card that he can remember and compare that with 312 ranks. So there's a lot of people who feel like it might be a bit lower than a 7 out of 10. I mean, what is the worst? Do you have a worst pay-per-view card of all time stand out in your mind?
The Paul Buentello and Arlovsky card wasn't great. There was one they went to Canada for, I think it was like 140 something, and it was a fucking dreadful ass card. Also, they had a bunch of injuries. The Rashad Evans Thiago Silva card ended up being a fucking disaster. This card is better than that. This card is better than all the things I just mentioned. Literally. Like, listen, if people want to rate this card a 5 or a 6, fine. But, like, you know, being hyperbolic and saying it's a 4 or less is ridiculous. I think that the main event could be, you know, a bit of a march, but is still important. Co-main event is hugely important. There are good, not great, but good fighters filling out the rest of that card. It's fine. It's fine. You know what I mean? Like, it's there's parts of it that are good and the rest of it is fine. It's just not spectacular by any stretch.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? I'm excited to see Jimmy Crute back, Jake Matthews in the mix. And those guys will probably see this and be like, hey, what's wrong with this card? And, you know, I'm excited for them to be back. It's not that there's anything wrong with them. It's just that, unfortunately, the UFC weren't able to deliver the entertainment, maybe factor as much as they wished. JDM and Usman, That was supposed to be a fight that was discussed. There were all sorts of fights discussed. And that just goes to this question saying, UFC 312 doesn't have the biggest names. Do you think when they return to next year in Sydney, they will try harder to make up to the fans with the bigger card? I just think the UFC, you know, is a machine with cogs and wheels, and they try to put the fights in that they can. And if they can't, the card will continue, right, Luke? These things are already locked in ahead of time, and they've got deals with the tourism board. So that is what it is, you know?
And they serve a lot of masters. Like, they had to have something for London because they wanted to go to London, because going to London is important to them. Going to Sydney is important to them. So they had to have something for Sydney. But they only have so many fighters. They only have so much. You might be like, oh, they should do less events to have better stacked events, which that's one debate you could have. But I'm just saying, based on what the content schedule is, again, I understand people being, dude, especially like, you know, if you're Aussie, I can see there's like a lot of value. If you're an American looking at this card, you're like, who the fuck are these guys? But the reality is, it's not true that there's not quality on it. It's just, it's a different kind of quality. It's not superstar quality. And if people are saying if we're going to pay for that, we should get that. Fine. I'm just saying these are not bad fights. They're whatever, but they're not bad.
It's interesting. There's a bunch of stuff happening behind the scenes as well during fight week that I'll bring up with you. But before we even get into that, one of the things is Khamzat is actually going to be in Sydney the day of the fights, doing seminars and all sorts of stuff. Did the UFC make a mistake by not making this Khamzat DDP fight here?
I think they should have done it, but I don't know what their plans are. Again, goes back to the content schedule. What are the plans that they know that they have for the year that allow them to say, hey, we want to hold off on this? Because they probably wanted to save him for that. You know what I mean? And they're not, listen, you may like the UFC decision sometimes, you may not. And I don't know Sean Shelby great, but I've talked to him, you know, probably 15 or so times in my life, and I've always gotten along with him well in person. These are not dumb guys. So if they're not making that fight, there's probably a really good reason that they're not, in part so often because there's injuries. That may not be the case here, but you know, that's a big contributing factor. Typically, I'm guessing that they are saving him. It's the same reason Jack Della Maddalena is fighting in freaking London. Is that the best place for him to be fighting? Probably not, but it's a big important fight for that welterweight division. It's a big important fight for Leon, for him. Fuck it, you got to put it there. It's I think it would have been way cooler to see Khamzat fighting on this card. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. Like,
it's just fascinating because the guy the guy seemingly can never get out of the country, and he is sitting all the way in Australia.
Finally he does. Finally he does, and then they don't use him. Yeah.
There's a lot of fun stuff like that on this card. So let's talk about the fact that it looks like Alex Pereira is going to be cornering Sean Strickland here. We know DDP wants to fight Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira will be in Australia too, in the corner for Sean Strickland. What are you anticipating from this fight week? Because obviously Sean, you know, he can be explosive. DDP, he's going to see what kind of emotion he can draw out of Sean yet again. And now you got Alex Pereira in the mix in this potential DDP Alex Pereira thing that's been building for a while now. And after the last fight with Israel, his coach was telling me that they wanted to fight basically Alex Pereira straight away. What are you expecting from this fight week and the way things play out in Australia here?
I mean, does Alex Pereira speak English? I don't even know what to make of him being in the corner other than his symbolism. You know what I mean? Like, is he out there spitting, you know, real technical advice in between? I mean, I don't even know if
he's not the most emotive guy, right? So if he can't speak English, he's not translating it with his emotion.
What the fuck is he doing?
You know, he's going to come out. He's going to come out and...
I think in the wake, I honestly think I'm amazed that they brought Sean Strickland back to Australia, because Australia has speech rules that are, let's just say, less forgiving than American speech rules.
And last time he did politely punch a fan in the stomach.
Well, punching fans, I'm okay with. I mean,
that's almost got kicked out before the fight happened.
My favorite sports highlight of all time is Malice at the Palace. You understand what I'm saying?
I love that.
I'm all right. But the point I'm trying to make is, I was very surprised UFC took him back there just based on kind of the issues that they ran into. But, you know, whatever, they did. And I think this fight week, I mean, especially in the wake of Bryce Mitchell, they might have a conversation with him being like, please just don't say the world's worst things. But it will still be spirited. Dude, you've seen it. DDP has a really dry way of making people get in their feels, man. It's quite amazing. and I suspect he's going to try and do that. I've detected a meaner edge from Sean. Sometimes he had a bit of a happy to be here kind of attitude. I don't detect that this time. I detect that he's like all business, which kind of might make him meaner, but that might be better for a fight, actually. So I suspect that the fight week will look pretty close to the last one, maybe a little bit tamer, maybe, famous last words, maybe a little bit tamer, but I expect the fight to be also pretty similar, but a little bit more of a grinding affair.
And I can confirm that when I spoke to Eric Nixick, they're going to have a permanent security guard with them the whole time.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
UFC. His name is Luke. He seems like a nice guy. Seems like he can kick some ass at a drop of a hat. How about this? Sean Strickland, he went off on Khamzat recently. He said that, he branded Robert Whittaker a can, and he kind of didn't seem very impressed by that win, kind of talking about, in a potential matchup, how that Robert Whittaker fight doesn't really do much for him if he does fight Khamzat. What do you think? Is this just talk? I mean, the guy's trained with Khamzat. Khamzat's been at Extreme Couture. We've heard stories about how that went. Is this just talk in case a potential fight happens? Or do you actually think he believes that Khamzat is still unproven at middleweight?
He might believe it, but it doesn't matter. Khamzat is going to be next, and that's just what it is. That's just what it is. He might be telling himself that because he's got to focus on DDP. He might be telling himself that because he believes it. There's any number of ways in which these guys will say things to the world and to themselves to convince them of something for an outcome that has nothing to do with what the actual reality of the world is, right? And again, as it relates to competitive needs, I don't have a problem with that. Like telling themselves, I'm better than this guy. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. But if you don't believe that, you're fucked. And if you do, that's at least the starting point to get going. So I don't really have any problem with that. But it doesn't matter. Like the number one contender is Khamzat with a bullet. And I think him putting some distance between it, I understand. Because again, he's kind of focused on DDP, but dude, all roads lead to that. Like that is what is next. Whoever is the winner, whether it's Strickland or DDP, doesn't matter whatsoever. They can say whatever they want. They can distance whatever they want. They are allowed to have whatever say about him they want. They got a date with him next. Fuck whatever else they heard. So to me, it's like it's absolutely irrelevant what they have to say about it. They're going to have to face him down and prove it one way or the other. Good luck. You're going to need it.
Out of those two, from what we know right now, from what we've seen, can either one of those guys beat Khamzat in your opinion? And if so, which one?
I think either can. I'm not fully convinced that Khamzat can do the 5-round thing very well against elite guys, which is at this point who he's facing, right? And so I think either of those guys have a chance. To me, Strickland's takedown defense is typically pretty good. Not great, but typically pretty good. He's got, I think, plus 80% takedown defensive rate. He gets back up. He doesn't spend a lot of time on bottom. He's obviously gone up against guys like Kamaru Usman, who had some success with him again, like that, back when he was a welterweight anyway. I think that's right. Double check that. I think that's right. And the fact that he trained with him, I think gives him a sense of confidence as well. So I might lean Sean, but I think either guy might be tough enough to hang on and then rally late. And I don't know how Khamzat handles that.
Hey, let me ask you this then. In that first Sean Strickland DDP fight, who did you have winning? Did you agree with the judges or did you have it another way?
So when I watched the fight in real time, I thought DDP won. When I went and I watched it back, I thought Sean Strickland won. And it's close, and I don't think that it's a big deal no matter who you pick. In the end, though, I didn't realize. I mean, you could see a lot of the shots that he was blocking. He kind of raises an arm and it hits here, and he leans and he gets out of the way. Sean Strickland does. I didn't realize how much he was blocking until I went back and I watched it in close detail. It was significant. It was a lot. There was a lot that didn't get through. And for that reason, I mean, that's what Sean Strickland does. He just turns every fight into trench warfare. You're on that side, I'm on this side. Here's the line. I lob, you lob. I lob, you lob. I block, you block. And it's just that over and over and over again. So it's like this kind of accumulation fight. And I think in the end, when you really pay attention to the defensive details, Sean Strickland comes out ahead for me. Now, whether or not he'll do that this time, we shall see. But I thought Sean edged it. I really did.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Like, do you feel like this is going to be a continuation of the previous fight? Or do you think if you're either camp, you're looking to make those adjustments to make sure that it's not so close on the judges' scorecards? I mean, I imagine Eric Nixick, He's gone back to the drawing board and said, hey, Sean, we got to be more careful. We can't let DDP just throw all these shots and make the judges think like they're landing. We got to be more careful about the way we block these shots and get out of the way of shots. And I imagine with DDP and his team, they must be cooking up something different for Sean because they know he's going to be coming out with the same game plan and almost beat him the first time. How do you think both guys are going to take this rematch? Do you think it's going to be a continuation of this, or do you think it might be wildly different?
I don't think it's going to be wildly different. I mean, there might be some meaningful differences, but I don't think it's going to be wildly different. You got a lot of what they got to show last time. You got to see some of the takedowns from DDP. You got to see Sean Strickland deal with the blood in his eyes. You got to see him deal with the blitzes and shut them down. You got to see a lot. This is, to me, the big one. And it's actually something I've discussed with lots of different folks. But Sean Strickland has a very interesting thought process around defense. So he has he's not bladed, he's very square, and he kind of just walks into you, right? And if you're going to do that, you're going to get drilled unless you really refine it, like we saw out of the Poatan fight where he hit him with the left hook. But in terms of dealing with like the leg kicks and everything, you've seen how it works, but there's a big strength and a big weakness to it. The big strength is that, especially if you're pursuing and there's space behind you, if someone blitzes, you can just peel out, bring your head back, your hips forward, and you can just run your feet. You can cross step all the way back, and they can't really reach you until they have to kind of give up. It's a very, very interesting way. You can then circle back to center, and then you can get right back on the gas and start pressuring them again. But the problem with that ends up being is if I lean and my head is back further than my hips, I'm not in a mechanical position to throw anything with power, right? I'm not even in a position to throw hardly at all, right? That's why when you see him kind of counter, it looks really awkward because he's in a very unbalanced position. You have to have good balance to have good striking. He is making a trade. And the trade that he is making is, I'm going to forego the opportunity to have offense in a lot of these blitzing scenarios because I'm just going to peel out and be defense first. I think he realized that is what cost him in that fight in particular. In fact, if you go and look at the Costa fight, which he did afterwards, you'll see him peel a little bit and then attack, right? Trying to like nullify that a little bit. They want to keep his defensive sensibilities, with the high shoulder at times, and he parries and he gets a hand up and all that kind of stuff. But they have to get, he's losing some of these battles barely, right? It was a split decision the first time, was it not? And this is what I mean. It's like defensively, for the most part, he's pretty good. It's pretty complete. Not perfect, but pretty good. The problem is there's just not enough offense, not enough meaningful offense, I should say. And if you're going to spend big portions of your fight leaning and escaping and cross-stepping, there's not enough time for offense. I think this is going to be a great test to see how he can handle that. In the case of DDP, I think he's going to do exactly what he did last time. High volume, high volume, high volume, high volume. I'm going to make this guy react defensively at all times, because the first time they fought, what did he do? If I blitz, maybe I don't hit you, maybe I hit you with some, but he's just going to peel. If you're peeling, as I mentioned before, you just don't have offense underneath you. That, to me, is the central tension in this fight. Who can solve that problem the best? I actually think for that reason, it's actually a pretty interesting fight.
Let's say DDP does beat Strickland, goes out there and then beats Khamzat. Do you think 205? Do you want to see what he can do at 205, or would you rather he remains and 185? Because there's a lot of great guys coming up.
Khamzat, I don't give a fuck about 205. I mean, yes, don't get me wrong. DDP. But
let's say he beats Khamzat. Let's say he beats Khamzat.
Okay.
Strickland and Khamzat. Does he then go at 205, or does he stay at 185?
No. And I don't need to see a rematch with Izzy. Send him to 205. Like, no doubt in my mind. Now, that's a big if. You got to beat Sean Strickland, and then you got to beat Khamzat Chimaev. But if DDP does that, send him on up. But doesn't matter if he wins on Saturday. The next fight is Chimaev. Somebody has to answer for that at the elite level. Let's see if he can do that.
All right, guys, it's time for a new year and a new you, thanks to our friends at MANSCAPED. Have you sorted all the best products to get you looking good downstairs and all over your body in 2025? Performance Package 5.0 Ultra by MANSCAPED is your secret weapon for stepping into 2025 sharp, clean, and confident. Don't be the guy that rolls into January looking like you just emerged from hibernation. Let the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, the Weed Whacker 2.0 handle your overgrowth so you can focus on leveling up. Start 2025 with precision, because the only thing that should be growing this year is your success and not your scruff. Join the 11 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. Use the code word submission now. Keep this show going. Get 20% off and free shipping today. Performance Package 5.0 Ultra is the all-in-one grooming kit. Of course, I mentioned it before, but I'll say it again. Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra is the best tool you could have. It also comes with the Weed Whacker 2.0 ear and nose hair trimmer. Full aftercare, which helps you treat yourself right with the crop soother and the crop preserver. Keeps you fresh and comfortable and confident so you're always ready to move forward. And you get some free gift. Kick off the year with a bonus that elevates your routine. The Boxers 2.0, which I love to wear. They're one of the most comfortable boxers you can wear. And the Shed 2.0 toiletry bag, which I take with me everywhere I go. Manscaped has a 30-day money-back guarantee as well, so you can try it risk-free right now. Use the code word submission. Go right now, 20% off and free shipping. And I just want to talk to you guys about SAILY as well. SAILY is an unbelievable app that's going to change the game forever when it comes to travel, and you want to be covered with your phone. Forget lining up at airports and having to get a new SIM, taking your SIM out, keeping it in a little baggie, making sure you don't lose it. Forget all of that. SAILY has you sorted. All you got to do is download the app, choose the amount that you want to spend, what country you want to go to, and boom, like that, you are sorted. I just went to New Zealand. I was absolutely covered. I didn't want to spend the $10 or $20 or $30 a day that I was going to have to spend because of my provider. I put in an amount. It had me covered the entire time, and I even still have data left over because it was so smooth and easy. One of the things I love about SAILY as well that you may not realize is it actually comes with an ad blocker. So if you are watching videos or doing stuff on the internet, why waste your data on ads? The ad blocker has you sorted, and it comes with web protection as well. You know, malware on your device is the last thing you need on your travels, and SAILY gets you sorted and protected too. So why not jump on right now, use the code word submission, get 15% off. All you gotta do is download the app, choose your destination, where you wanna go, the amount of money you wanna spend, activate it on your phone without having to take out your SIM card, without having to line up at airports, without having to re-sign different documents. SAILY has you sorted, whether you need a little bit of data or a lot of data, whatever your plan is, SAILY has you covered wherever you go in the world. Go on right now, check out the app. It's the most seamless and easiest process when it comes to travel eSIMs that you can experience. Use the code word submission, 15% off. Jump on right now. What are you waiting for? Grab your SAILY today. If you're traveling tomorrow, next month, get it sorted today. Use the code word submission while it's still active. It's 15% off. SAILY.com/submission gets you sorted. Try it today, whether it's a lot of data, small amount of data. SAILY has you sorted. Easy, seamless, highly recommended. Now back to the program. It's going to be interesting to see what he can do. Talk to me a little bit about this Weili fight happening in Sydney as well. It's big, obviously a big one with Suarez. People are excited to see what happens here. Weili, she's going to be sort of repping and sort of coming out with, I think, a big fan base down here in Australia. Probably a lot of people are making the travel down there from Asia to come and watch her do her thing. What are you expecting from this matchup between the two?
This is do or die for Tatiana Suarez. Simple as that. She had a fight. She fought in 2023 and didn't fight in 2024. I know she had some last minute injuries, but or issues, whatever they were. But she was supposed to fight Amanda Lemos, fell through. Was supposed to fight Virna Jandiroba, fell through. She's 34 years old. I think UFC took a look at the clock and they took a look at her and they said, fuck it, front of the line. You don't have to fight for number one contenders. Like, either it's going to happen now or it's not going to happen at all. And let's just push her to the front of the line. So to me, this is do or die for Tatiana Suarez. There was a time when she was coming through the fight game pre-pandemic where we were like, is she the female Khabib? And I know she already overcame cancer before we even got to that part. And she's got an incredible story. You can see the documentary about her on HBO Max or whatever. But this is do or die. And in the case of Zhang Weili, 35 years old, she has not exactly been as active as we would like. This is a new kind of test. Obviously at strawweight, she's the best for the time being, but it seems like there might be a new crop coming through. And at a bare minimum, the very particular challenges that a healthy Tatiana Suarez offers might be enough for her to capture gold, which has been long expected of her. I don't know. It's a weird moment. It just seems to me the UFC was like, man, we can't wait anymore. Front of the line, may the best woman win. I really believe that.
Send him to Australia.
Send him to fucking Australia.
Send him to Australia. Ship him off. Let's see what happens. Interesting dynamics in the back end, like I mentioned. Obviously, Pereira coming into the corner. But what about this one? Colby Thickness stepping in to fight Ilia Topuria's brother on the card. Now, for those that don't realize, Thickness is represented by Freestyle MMA. So what does that mean for the night? Well, you're going to have Alex Volkanovski cornering against Ilia Topuria earlier on in the night against each other before they match up. Definitely going to be an interesting dynamic. fight week. I'm imagining Colby Thickness. I already spoke to him yesterday, but I already spoke to him earlier, and he was talking about the fact that he's focused on the fight. He's not going to let the narrative get to him. But what is your reaction in us being able to see these two guys corner against each other before this rematch?
It's fun. I'm looking forward to it. I don't know what to make of Topuria's brother. You know, his nickname is I think it's El Cazador, the Hunter. You know, on tape he looks interesting. He moves a little bit like his brother, but he's fought, you know, just absolute and fucking donks. And that's not his fault. But I'm just saying, like, we don't know what to make of that. He looked good on tape, but I don't, you know, he's fighting, you know, pre-diabetic gas station attendants. It's really hard to know what to make of it. Whereas I looked at some tape on Colby Thickness, who's got, you know, hilarious last name. He looks okay, not great, fine. Maybe he'll be good. I don't know. You know, I don't know what to make of it, but I will say this: it's fun to have that rivalry going. I'm glad Topuria is going to stay at featherweight. I can't wait for them to announce the rematch. I still think it's a tough fight for Volkanovski. I don't think he wins it, but definitely adding a little bit of spice to fight week dynamic and then fight night as well.
I'm seeing reports like Topuria's going, Ilya Topuria's going, I don't actually know if I'm going to fight Volko. Do you think this rematch actually happens in Miami, or do you think he's going to do the old dirty and go up to lightweight?
I think if he can get a big name opponent at lightweight, he'll go. But that's a big if. Like, he wanted Charles, and Charles is like, you know, and you can't get Max because they just fought. It's like, that's not on the table. So it's like, it depends. It really depends. Yeah.
Just a few shout outs on the card. So you mentioned Jimmy Crute coming back from a pretty rough situation, took some time off, was able to find himself again. Now he's back on this card. Jake Matthews, so shout out to him, of course. We've got Jack Jenkins here from Melbourne, and yeah, Colby Thickness, a bunch of local guys. So I just want to congratulate those guys for making it on the card. Luke, you're going to be doing the live watch along for it. Give me a breakdown. What else can people watch as this fight happens? What kind of coverage do we have here?
When is this video getting out?
We're going to be dropping it on Fight Week for UFC 312.
All right, so it'll be too late, but I'm going to do one right now for this weekend for the Benavidez-Morel boxing fight, as well as the UFC Saudi card. But then for next week, we'll watch together. We'll watch the 2 title fights, and I'll do a post-fight show. We'll do a breakdown. And stay tuned. People have been asking me about some content that they want from me that I've not been able to deliver because I didn't have a place to put it. I have found a place to put it. I'm not ready to announce where that is, but stay tuned. I will have one soon. And I know I've teased that for a while, but like, it actually really is in motion this time. So yeah.
Videos is the place it's going to
That's right. It's going to be called.
I can't wait to watch it.
That's right.
Thank you so much for joining me, man.
Yeah, thank you.